The Chargers unveiled their 2025 NFL roster this past Tuesday. So let's break down what their strengths and weaknesses are and what the season's going to look like in 2025. Let's get into it. All right, the roster is pretty much finalized, and the season is less than a week away. Well, for the Chargers, it's actually 1 week away on Friday because they play on Friday in Brazil against the Chiefs in week 1. So if you were watching the channel, I gave my full preseason breakdown of what I thought the 53-man roster was going to look like. And then when they unveiled the roster finalization on Tuesday, I gave my opinions on what I thought the mistakes were in that facet. So if you haven't checked those videos out, please do so. Always hit the subscribe button to let the YouTube algorithm know we're doing big things out there as well. But yeah, we're going to break down exactly what my predictions were real quick. I'll rehash that, and then we'll get into what the actual roster is, and I'll give you my overview of what I think the strength and weaknesses is on this roster going into the 2025 season. So yeah, I'm trying to be positive here. I think they missed the ball in certain facets. I think they're keeping some dead weight around, in my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. I don't feel that in my spirit. So, and although I think the roster is pretty solid, holistically, I think they missed opportunities to be better on the field when it comes to week 1. So, yeah, let's just talk about it, man. Let's jump right into it, man, because yeah, I got some things to say and get off my chest here. Again, I'm not in the front office. I'm not in the regime. I'm just a fan. But I have played and coached a lot of football in my life, and I just see things, from a objective level, and I think they missed the boat here in certain facets. So let's talk about what the 53-man roster is. This is my predictions. I'm not gonna rehash this long because I did go over this in entirety in the video last week, but I had it at 25 and 25 and 3 for the special teams, even on both fronts. I highlighted the fact that we're going to keep 4 tight ends and one of them being Scott Matlock instead of Tucker Fisk. 5 edge rushers, they end up doing 6 interior D linemen, 4 linebackers, 4 safeties, 6 corners. It didn't really pan out that way. And here's my roster. I said they were going to keep Kamani Vidal, Naeem Hines. They didn't. 6 receivers I got right. The tight ends I got almost right. Scott Matlock is a D lineman or a fullback / D lineman versus Tucker Fisk being the actual 4th tight end. The O-line, of course, the starting 5 was no brainer, but I did miss on David Sharp, Branson Taylor, and Josh Klaxenberg being on the roster, on the 53-man roster. Branson and Klaxenberg, I believe, on the practice squad, but David Sharp is a flat out got released from the practice squad on Thursday. So that is what it is. The edge rushers I got completely right. I think the D-line I got completely right as well. Interior linebackers, I was wrong with G. Colson from the fact that he's on IR, but we'll get into that. Troy Dye made it, Denzel Perryman made it, but Marlo Wax and a few other people made it, so we'll talk about that. The secondary I got somewhat right. I think the guys that I've listed, they're on the roster, but they added a few others. The safety room is the biggest surprise to me, in all honesty, and we'll talk about that. I had Derwin, Elijah, Tony, and RJ making it, and without reveal who actually made it in its entirety. But here's the count. This is what actually ended up being. They actually chose 24 offensive players and 27 defensive players and technically two special teamers because the long snapper, ironically, is on IR, as you can see here on the screen. So that was an interesting move. Chargers went through a lot, man. A lot of injuries, kind of flying under the radar in a sense. They've been really close to the vest and very mums to worry about the injuries and guys that hadn't been practicing. But, when you had a designated from IR, all the truth came out. Junior Colson, a few other people, Dean Leonard, Eric Rogers, all these people landed on the IR, and we didn't even know how severe the injuries were. So, yeah, that was a big surprise to a lot of people. So I think that's why that kind of plays into the idea why the roster is kind of the way it is. But let's break it down. Let's talk about exactly what they chose. So I said 2 quarterbacks. That was right. Trey Lance and Justin Herbert. They did retain DJU in the practice squad. We'll talk about that. Marion Hampton and Najee Harris, no surprises there really, but the big surprise for me was Hassan Haskins. I don't think Hassan Haskins brings much to the team at all. I'm just going to be honest with you. And this is me being honest, me being, forthright with you as a fan base, right? Because, I see it, before I see it around the corner before it happens. I think that, he's never been a great runner. He's fairly young, 26 years old, but he's never been a great runner of the football. He's never been a great pass catcher. I mean, the only thing he can really hang his hat on in the league right now is being a good pass protector. And in all honesty, that limits his effectiveness, in my opinion. Because if I can get that done with Naeem Hines or Kamani Vidal in the same facet, they have a different skill set that they can actually bring to the team. And it makes it a little more mysterious in what you want to do on third down. Because this is my problem. So if you take out Marion Hampton, Najee Harris on third down, you bring in Hassan Haskins, right? You know he's passing the ball, and you know Hassan Haskins is not a threat to you. He's going to be in, he's going to pass block, and he automatically tells the defense exactly what the offense is doing. We know that it's going to be one less pass catcher in the route because he's going to be pass blocking. And if you throw him the ball out of the backfield, it's not going to do much. So again, that's a tell. So I would argue that I would have kept Kamani Vidal, Raheem Sanders, or Naeem Hines for that respect, because again, you can throw them guys the ball, they can pass protect, and they have a better running ability than Hassan Haskins has. So this is a really head scratcher for me in regards to why they kept him. The receiver is no big beef there. They kept who I thought they want to keep. It. I was spot on with that. That's not an issue here at all. Why they kept Tucker Fisk in the tight end room? I'm questioning that. I think you could have literally, designated Matlock as more of a tight end role, and he could play D-line on the other side of it when he was called to do so. Why waste a roster spot on a full tight end and a fullback? That was kind of questionable to me. I know they want to be a run-heavy team, but I think you could have used that roster spot for another O-lineman, potentially another linebacker, something. They'll add more value to the team, because I don't think Tucker Fisk adds much value to the team, in all honesty. Outside of Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly getting hurt, because we know Ronnie Gaston is not the most best when it comes down to pass run blocking. Let me say it that way. He's not the most elite at run blocking. Let's just say that. So, yeah, I get that, Tucker Fisk can be another body from a run blocking perspective, but I'm like, if you have Scott Matlock, what do you need Tucker Fisk for in regards to being a blocker? I think one should be enough. If you can't get that done, or use Will Dissly as another H-back, if one of those guys get hurt, then again, what are we doing here? Because Ronnie Jackson's going to be in the offense. He's the best pass catching tight end I think they might have. In all honesty, especially with his athleticism. So why do we have Tucker Fisk? I'm just curious about why you keep 4 tight ends in that space and Scott Matlock as a fullback. I don't know. It's a little weird to me, a little odd to me that they did that. All linemen, spot on. That the starting 5. They only kept 3 reserves though, which is odd. They released everybody outside of Andre James and Jamari Saleh, what he had, and then they traded for Austin Deculus from the Texans on a Tuesday of cutdown day. So I was, pretty fond of Austin Deculus coming out of college, a former LSU person. He never really saw the field much, in all honesty. But he had a decent preseason for some people's perspective. They didn't watch much of Texans football when he was on the field, in all honesty, so I can't really tell. But his size, his frame, if he's a good run blocker, I kind of see what Harbaugh and Ortiz and Roman were thinking in that particular space. But you gave up a 7th-round pick for an able body, so I guess so. Maybe he's an upgrade from David Sharper and other guys, but right now they only keep it 8 linemen, which I think that with it being an issue already with questions about Zion and Bradley and Trey Pipkins, and then you got Mekhi Becton with knee issues. I think that you could have did a little more. Let me say you could have did a little more in regards to them fortifying the O-line. I think you could have did a little more there, in my opinion, or keeping guys that you thought, had some development potential. If somebody goes down and needs to be replaced. So, I mean, outside of going out in the free agent market and picking up guys that were released or whatever the case may be, or traded for another guy, I think they could have done more with the O-line. I'm a little concerned there. I mean, Joe Mekhi Becton is kind of the stalwarts here. And Mekhi Becton, assuming his knees aren't, going to give him problems throughout the year, they're the guys we're going to lean on. But I got questions about the other three in the run and pass game. More so the pass game, but definitely both for Trey Pipkins' perspective. So I don't know. We'll see how things roll. But maybe I have high hopes with Jamari Saleh. Maybe he can improve and show us some things, with his loss of weight and improving his foot quickness and things of that nature. So we'll see how things go, but I think they kind of dropped the ball there with the O-line, of course, and we still got questions there. Moving on to the defense, not a lot to say about the D line. The front interior D line and edge. Khalil Mack, Tuli Tulipilopu, Kyle Kennard, Caleb Murphy, Bud Dupree all earned their stripes in preseason. Tier Tart, Jamari Caldwell, Deshaun Hand, Daquan Jones, Otito Bonio, Justin Iboji. I called all those completely inaccurately. And that was going to be the front, D line's edge and interior D line perspective. Interior linebacker, Deion Henley, obviously the lead dog, Denzel Perryman, his counterpart now because Junior Colson's on IR. I brought Troy Dye in, or he kept Troy Dye, I should say, and Marlo actually had a stellar preseason. They kept him, mainly I think because Junior Colson is going to be on IR, season in the IR, so they kept Marlo Wax in his space. And I also think they signed, I'll get to it in a minute, I think they signed Delshawn Phillips as well to backfill a IR spot that they designated late. In the secondary, and this really had me scratching my head here. Of course, Donnie Jackson, Cam Hart, he's still Benjamin St. Juste, who they brought over in free agency. They're going to keep him. Nico Reed and Aaron Rodgers both made it. I was vying for them both to make it. I really was, advocating for them to make it. But I still don't understand why they kept Jaseel Taylor. Another roster spot I feel like that you kind of wasted. I think Miles Purchase, for my money, in my opinion, outplayed Jaseel Taylor. And I think much like Hassan Haskins, for the Jaseel Taylor perspective, outside of special teams value, what value does Jaseel Taylor really have outside of running a 4.340? Hasn't really shown his propensity to play really well in zone or man. In his 4 years been with the team. I think it was just time to cut bait. I think you've seen enough. He had enough sample size to see that he hasn't developed into the player that you need him to be. So I feel like he might be a little bit of a waste of a roster spot, but he is one of the best gunners in the league. So I mean, you keep him from that perspective. But I think you could have kept Miles Bridges on the 53-man roster and put this Taylor on the practice squad. In all honesty, I don't think nobody would pick him up. I think he'd have been safe. In all honesty. So I don't get that part either. We'll talk about Dean Litter in a minute, who's on IR as well. But that's another questionable one I have. But the safety room, boy, was I tight. I was tight about this one, and I don't understand it at all. Derwin James, obviously, Elijah Molden, obviously, RJ McGee is my guy. I've been speaking his praises for a good while. Not mad at all, and he played stellar in large sample sizes in the preseason. He was out there a lot, and he definitely played well. You can see the potential in his skill set that he's going to be good in the secondary. However, I don't understand the Haloy Gilman move at all. I really don't. Again, I think, same vein with Hassan Haskins, let me pronounce the man's name right, Jaseel Taylor, and now Haloy Gilman. I don't think these are all guys kind of holdover guys, and I don't get what they really bring to the team. It's nothing, super elite that they bring to the team, in my perspective. I mean, Haloy Gilman is not a great run defender, is not a great coverage guy in either man or zone. I'm just scratching my head at why he's still here, in all honesty. I just don't think he has the elite athleticism, especially being on last year's deal. Why not cut bait now and bring in a guy or keep a guy that has more playmaking ability, i.e. Tony Jefferson? Why is Kendall Williamson and Aloy Gilman on this roster and not Tony Jefferson? I get Tony Jefferson is older, but, and I always have the, mantra that, they say in baseball, tie goes to the runner. When in football, tie goes to the younger, right? But this isn't a tie, in my opinion. Tony Jefferson is head and shoulders above Kendall Williamson and Aloy Gilman in cover skills. Right here, right now. He does everything better than both of those guys, even though he's older. While he's veteran, you need that type of leadership. I think you have a better secondary room, a better safety room with Derwin, Elijah, RJ, and Tony versus the other two. So we got two spots that I don't think they're going to contribute much. And we're going to be complaining about their coverage skills if they're on the field in these facets. So I'm a little let down with that, but that's what they chose, and hopefully they can contribute, and hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't see it. I don't see it from my field perspective. So that's what they did. That's what they have. So, we gotta live with it as fans, but I think they missed the ball in that space. I really do. I think the biggest, most glaring thing, and I said this yesterday, that the O-line, they could have done more. The running back room makes me scratch my head. The tight end room makes me scratch my head with the fourth guy, Tucker Fisk. And the secondaries, corners and safeties, I think that you could have done better by keeping certain guys and letting other guys go. So it is what it is. So here's the latest transactions before we get out of here. I think some of this was kind of leaning to the idea why these guys are here, or some of the guys are on the roster, still head scratching about some other things. But Josh Harris, who's the long snappers on IR, so they got to figure out what they're going to do about the long snapping ability. I think they said Tucker Fisk might have been a guy that kind of stepped in and did and filled that role. So maybe that's why he kept him. I'll get to the bottom of that. But it did audition some guys that are long snappers, so they plan on bringing somebody in. I don't think they have plans for him to do that long term if that's what his role is right now. Eric Rodgers, again, from his injury to preseason games ago, he's on the IR with a destination to return. And Dean Leonard, again, why I don't get the allure and why he's here either. But they put him, they waste. I don't want to say they wasted. That's disrespectful. But I said they use an IR spot for Dean Leonard, and so they plan to bring him back to be a part of the rosters, which makes me scratch my head, and also makes me wonder who's going to be the odd man out when he does need to return. I don't get it. Now, mind you, let's say hypothetically that Nico Reed and other guys play well, and you don't have no need for Dean Leonard. Then what do? I don't know. But the fact that you went through the extreme to designate him as an IR return makes me wonder, or it makes me think that you have a plan for him once he comes back. But we don't know. Now, seasoning Indy IRs, I left my S out of that because interesting typo. But Junior Colson, he's an IR designation for not return, so his season is over. So that spawned a couple of moves. They brought in Del'Shawn Phillips when Eric Rodgers went on IR, and they brought in Austin Ekeler as in trade, like I mentioned earlier. So those are the new signings and the trades that they made. I think they made another move by bringing Foster Sorrell in, and they let David Sharp go, but that's the practice squad designations. So for practice squad, they were lucky enough to keep Tony Jefferson on the practice squad. I'm very surprised at that. Surprised when I snatched them up. They still could, because a practice squad player can get signed to the active roster at any point in time. Naeem Hines is on the practice squad, which again, I don't see why you chose to keep Naeem Hines on a practice squad, but you keep Hashawn Haskins or Kamani Vidal on the practice squad. I don't get why that's a thing. I would have kept Kamani Vidal. Kamani Vidal had a rookie contract that was in place. You voided that and put him on the practice squad instead of keeping him on the active roster and maybe practice squadding Hassan Haskins. Again, don't understand. Austin Sorrell is a practice squad player, holdover from a few years ago. Branson Taylor, rookie, they drafted, voided his contract, put him on a practice squad. Head scratcher again. DJU, who's another practice squad player, third-ish quarterback, emergency quarterback. Miles Purchase is on a practice squad. I didn't get it either. I would have traded Jaseel Taylor for Miles Purchase in a heartbeat. He outplayed him in the preseason, in my opinion. Why he's on the practice squad and Jaseel Taylor's on the active roster, I don't know. But Jalen Reagor's another practice squad player that's there, so there's that. So there you have it, man. That is the roster in a nutshell, and I think that I've beat the horse enough. I think it might be finished. That I really drove home what my issues were, and I think it'll ring its ugly head in the season if we don't get out to a hot start. In all honesty, I think that O-line is questionable. Running back should be okay, but I think that you could have done better with the idea of keeping a better running back. The safety room should be okay, but if you take an injury here, then we got to rely on Alohi Gilman and Kendall Wilson to hold things down in the back end of the defense. Bite my nails. And outside of that, I think it's okay. I mean, everybody else is okay. I think the roster, again, like I said, I don't think it's terrible, but I also believe that it could be better. I think you could have kept Tony Jefferson, adding to that dominant defense, a dominant scoring defense. I think that'd have been better for you. And I think having a better running back for sure in maybe another a better corner, in that space. So we'll see. We'll see what they plan to do when these guys come back from injury. But for now, that's where it lands. So let me know in the comments how you feel about all this. Like I said, there's always hit that subscribe button to let the YouTube algorithm know we're doing big things out there in Chargers land. If you're looking for the Electric Shock Podcast, here's our platforms everywhere on social media. We're in the same Electric Shock Pod, electricshockpod@gmail.com as well if you need to reach us there. And as always, man, until the next week, we got week one coming up. So we got a lot of videos coming down the pipeline. We're going to do a preview video. We're going to talk about our expectations for the season. And we'll talk about the Chiefs games in entirety and what the keys to victory are. So look out for that. And like I said, hit that subscribe button, bang that subscribe button, and help us out there on the YouTube algorithm. And we'll be back next week with some more videos, man. But one thing is always you got to do and do well. You always got to remember to boat up.